The Seattle Seahawks 2021 schedule breakdown is here. I am your host, Dalton Miller, joined as always by Ian Cummings. And once again, guys, we're going to get straight into it. The toughest game from Vegas. What are they doing? What are they thinking? The San Francisco 49ers are their most difficult game? I mean, listen, Vegas screws up very, very little. But this to me seems like a blatant screw up because not only do they have the San Francisco 49ers as the most difficult game through Vegas odds, they play the 49ers again away in San Francisco. They're a divisional foe. What is Vegas thinking here? What is the actual most difficult game of the season for them, Ian?
Yeah, versus if it was at 49ers, I'd be like, all right, that's okay, I can stomach that. But versus the 49ers, you have a clear alternative to pick.
Get out of here.
Pick it. Seriously. No, but it wasn't. This was not even on my radar. I was going through these schedules, trying to find the toughest games. I chose week 15 at the Los Angeles Rams. I think that, and if you watched our Rams video, you know that was our most defining game for the Rams against the Seahawks. I think that the same holds true for the Seahawks. I mean, these are two teams, as we've mentioned before, that are always competing for playoff position, always in that conversation. As much as you may not like Pete Carroll and his old school style, let's face it, guys, he just gets there, right? And Russell Wilson, too. I mean, anytime Wilson is on the team, he's going to drive them to success. He has the weapons to do it, even if his line still isn't good enough. I think this will be a very good game to watch. I had that as my toughest game. But even after that, there are a few games that might be tougher than versus the 49ers. Looking at the Titans, maybe the Packers, if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. We don't know what's going to happen there. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think it ends with the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are a team that could put some pressure on them, but there are a few other games to consider as well.
I can tell you who it isn't on the schedule, and that's the Houston Texans. That is definitely not the most difficult game. If you see the Houston Texans on anyone's schedule, it is for the easiest game of the season.
We feel bad at this point because it's always them. But
I mean, I would say that I feel bad, but I really don't because they did this to themselves, to be honest. Yeah. The Green Bay Packers, for me, are the most difficult game for the Seattle Seahawks. I think because it's at Green Bay, I think Lambeau is a tough place to play. It is going to be outside. I think that is the most difficult game of the season. What is the one game that you have to sit down on the couch and watch?
There are a couple. Tennessee is definitely one. After the Titans got Julio Jones and A.J. Brown going up against a Seahawks secondary that didn't quite recoup value after losing a couple guys like Quentin Dunbar, Shaquille Griffin. They might be a little short-staffed, and so Russell Wilson might have to get in his bag in this one and try and keep up with the Titans' offense that's starting to add more pieces to it. So I'm really excited to see that, and also I think the Titans' defensive line, having 𝗬𝗎𝗓𝗓, Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, could put a little more pressure on a Seahawks offensive line that we just mentioned. It's still not quite where it needs to be. So that could be a good one and kind of a good gauge for where these two teams are headed, because these are two teams that could be in the playoff conversation if things go their way. But also, I think the Washington football team is another one to watch. And for me, it's just the matchup in the trenches, too, because the Washington football team has the best defensive line in the league. And I think that could, it's going to be interesting. Russell Wilson, can he tip the scales enough? Because this Washington defense is really shaping up to be a very good one. That's another interesting one for me. And also, it's Monday Night Football, right? So that's the only one on the schedule for that week on Monday. So I think you have to watch that. But those are two for me. But I think also you have to look at LA. I mean, any LA Rams game versus Seattle has to be on the list too.
You just had to steal my thunder, didn't you? You had to do it. I was going to go out there. I was going to go out on a limb and say, hey, I think this Washington game is the one game out of all of these that I really want to see, because I want to see if Russell Wilson can outrun that crazy good defensive line. But since you stole my thunder, I'll go with a little bit different game here. I will go with the Thursday night game against the Rams. It's at home, 8:20, short week for these football teams. I want to see them come out and win that football game. And for me, it's the one that I want to watch the most, mostly because it's the only game on that night. Yeah. And so for me, that's one that I really want to see. But for me, the most pivotal game of the season actually comes in week 7. It's a little bit earlier. It's going to be versus the Saints at home against the Saints. We don't know what we are going to see from the New Orleans Saints at the quarterback position yet. We probably expect it to be Jameis Winston, but there's probably going to be a lot of snaps where you see Taysom Hill in at quarterback as well, and he might end up being the starter by that point. we don't know what we're going to get from Jameis Winston. It's a tough question to ask yourself, but it will be super entertaining. I think it's the most pivotal game because I do think that if they are going to win this division and maybe even potentially get that first seed in the West, they are going to have to win this football game.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And it's interesting because we talk about Seattle. You have to talk about the Rams too. And I chose the most defining game for the Rams as the Seahawks in Week 15. So if we can, I like the change of pace with the Saints, and I'm going to add another change of pace or a couple changes of pace. I think that Week 16 against Chicago, maybe it's at home, but Justin Fields at this point, maybe he's taking the starting job. He's had a few weeks to acclimate to the NFL game. If you've watched the Seahawks game, there is never a normal Seahawks game. Okay, it's just not in the itinerary. Okay, for any Sunday afternoon, it's not going to happen. There are always random hitches and really crazy twists, and I think that this is a game where if the Seahawks aren't careful, Justin Fields could play spoiler for them. I think you also have to look at the season finale at Arizona. Again, we talked about Arizona. That's a team on the cusp, could be in the conversation at this point, and they have enough firepower to put some pressure on the Seahawks secondary. I think that'll be a good one too, depending on where these teams are. If Cliff Kingsbury has already fallen off the cliff at this point, then maybe that's a different storyline. But if they're in that situation, if both of them are kind of jockeying for position, that's going to be a good one to watch too.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think is the one game that you got to sit down in the couch? You got to, maybe, crack open a libation, get some wings from your local wing stop. What game are you sitting down and watching? What's the one game you got to see? What do you think is the most pivotal game for the Seattle Seahawks in the 2021 regular season? And what do you think is the most difficult game? Because I'm going to have questions for you if you do believe that it is the San Francisco 49ers. Let us know in the comments, guys.